And we are live. What's going on? Welcome everybody to another edition of CashSports podcast slash Cash Media. We're back at it again on a lovely Monday here to talk some more football, some more sports, right? And I got a little something for you guys today. Um, typically I don't talk about NCAA. I definitely watch it though. I just haven't really built up the audience for it. But the national championship is here, so we got to get into it. We got to talk about it, man. We got to cover this. We got to talk about it. So as Georgia and TCU are going to be going against each other in the national championship game on January 9th, 7:30 Pacific time, right? That's out here in LA in the SoFi Stadium. It's already going down, man, right here in Inglewood, man. So things are about to go down. I'm excited for it, man. I can't wait for this game. I always get excited when playoff football, anything playoffs really, where there's high level of competition, high stakes, things are on the line, players are going to play their best. You have players that's, going to leave it all out there, right? So let's get into it. But before we do that, please like and subscribe to the video and also hit that bell, that notification button. So whenever I hit that live stream, you guys can tune in whenever I go live, right? So let's get into this. I'm give my own synopsis on the whole Georgia TCU situation and these two matchups in particular. Now I'm rocking with these teams, man. We already know Georgia, right? They're the reigning champions from the prior year. They beat Alabama, right? And then since then, they've been one of the teams. Like not a lot of teams can really mess with them. And they're the number one team in the nation for a reason. They have one of the best, if not the best, defense. I forgot the name of their quarterback. Sorry about that. But their quarterback, right? He's also been coming up into his own, looking like a Heisman finalist. So, and Kirby Smart, ever since he's took this program under his wing, he's definitely put himself in the forefront to compete with literally anybody. With any football program, right? So if Kirby Smart were to win the championship with Georgia, he'll be one of the three active coaches to win a national championship with one program, or probably multiple programs. Who knows? But I know it's like one out of the three active coaches to have multiple national championships. And TCU, really, they came out of nowhere. As the years went by, people were starting to play closer and closer attention to TCU and started to realize, they were starting to win some games. They were starting to come back from a lot of games. You've seen the urgency, you've seen the drive and the will to win. And if you guys ever watched any TCU games besides the one we had watched against Michigan, I mean, you can kind of see where I'm coming from with my analysis, right? So both these teams, man, they're physical. They have good quarterbacks. Some may say TCU might have a better quarterback situation with Max Duggan, if I'm not mistaken. That is his name, right? Yes, Max Duggan, right? Uh, and also they have a really good rushing game, if I'm not mistaken. Also, with Amari DiMercado. I hope I said that right. TCU was definitely not looked at as one of those teams that was going to be in the national championship. But hey, here they are. There's a lot of ways we can come about this. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of things we can talk about that led us to this point, right? Alabama, they had two losses on the year, even though they had won their bowl game. Some were talking about that they had a legitimate argument to still be in the top four, especially since TCU had lost their conference game against Kansas State, I believe, right? Georgia has been undefeated. They've been beating every team on their record, every team on their schedule. So it's really no argument as to how and why they're in the playoffs to begin with, nonetheless, in the national championship. So it's good to see that they're at least defending their championship in the championship game. That's what I really like to see. You know. But now let's get into it. So before we get into the actual game itself, let's rewind it back a little bit. Let's talk about the games that just occurred over the weekend on December 31st. And so the first game that I am going to bring up is, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. TCU, TCU and Michigan game, right? So I did have some notes. I did have some notes. So as I was watching this game, right, TCU against Michigan. I mean, it was a great game through and through, right down to the last wire. You know, a Jim Harbaugh team. You know, they've been trying to clutch away for a long time. They weren't beating any OSU teams, especially when. Sir, appreciate it. Um,
I feel the
But
cheese.
yes, especially when Urban
That's
Meyer
the
was
cheese
there
on
as
the
the head
cracker.
coach for
Feel
OSU,
Look
and
at
he
this.
couldn't
It's the
he couldn't
cheesiest
muster up a
change.
This is
win
the cheesiest
against
day of my
against
life.
Ohio
This
State.
takes
But
spinach
now
cheese
since
to a
Ryan
whole
Day is
new
the
level.
head coach,
Cheese
I
It,
mean
official sponsor of the college
he's beaten
football
Ohio
playoff.
State back to back, convincingly too. So
You got that ball with
you can
2:36
arguably
left to
say
play
that
in this
this
game.
is
What went
you
through your
know
mind when you started to see
over the
that
last
drive?
couple of
How you had
years,
to win this
these are
game down
Jim
by six?
Harbaugh's best college teams. These are his best
It's in our
teams
hands now,
to
And then when
date,
we scored, I
right?
was scared to death
And
because
then
they
so
played a
as I
hell of
was
a game
watching
on
this game,
offense.
yeah, I mean,
I was like,
you were
damn, we
really
scored too quick.
watching
And then our
two
dude stepped up.
powerhouses play against each other.
What a
I
game.
mean,
What a game. I
who's to
don't,
really
I'm a little
argue
bit
that,
biased.
right?
That
But with
might be better than
TCU, I
17
mean, they
Rose Bowl.
just
I don't know,
managed to
but
kind of
good Lord.
stay
Wow.
physical. They were
You
able to
got
run the
emotional
ball.
with just a
Max
few
Dunn has
seconds left
clearly
in this
made some
game. How did
mistakes
you do it
throughout the
again,
game,
Stetson? Back
but
to
they
back
just so
to the
happened
national
to just
championship.
really stay firm onto the league. Now,
Nah,
Michigan was coming back throughout the game, but
wow.
there were a
You know,
couple
that
BS calls.
they're a freaking
There
unbelievable
were
team,
some
dude.
calls
Wow.
that definitely could have
And
been
we fought and we fought and they
labeled
beat us.
targeting,
It seemed like the
especially
whole
during,
game.
I believe
And
it
then
was
we
the
came back
first
when we needed
drive
to make a
against
play. We had
Michigan,
Karras and then AD came
where
back.
a player had caught the
Uh,
ball,
Unbelievable.
and they said
AD has been out. He's
he
been
wasn't
injured
in
in and
the
out of
end
the
zone
lineup. How
when
did you
he
trust
caught it.
him
He
in that
caught it
moment with
like
the
just
biggest
at the
touchdown
one.
of your life?
For me, I think that
Just
rule is
because he was out, it
BS. I
doesn't
think
change
it's
who he
complete and
was.
utter
You know,
bullshit.
we had
Because
to get
in
back
the
on the same
NFL, unless
page.
somebody
But
touches
I
you on
knew
the
at the top
ground,
of that route, there's not
then
many people
that's
that can
when you're
stay with you the
considered
way this
down. But
life.
if you catch the
And I
ball
just
and then
trusted him. I
that's where
put
they
it up
stop
before
it,
he even came out. And if he
I
screwed up
didn't
something,
know
he wouldn't
that
have made a
rule
play. And
existed. Nonetheless,
wow.
to kind of
I mean,
take that,
yeah.
to
How
take
does it sound if we see you
that
next week in the
touchdown
national
away
championship?
really
Yeah.
did
If
affect
you had told me that when we were
Michigan
down,
down the
whatever we were
line.
down in
I
the
mean, just
fourth, I'd have been
imagine if
like,
they had
you are
scored on that
crazy.
drive. It probably would have been a
Yeah. Well,
different
we'll see
game.
you there.
And not to mention, they fumbled right there on the 1 yard line um, on that drive, though, too. So that certainly hurt them. If it didn't hurt them then, it definitely hurt them in the future. I mean, hey, they lost the game, right? But TCU, for the most part,
When it
Max
comes to
Duggan,
doing,
JJ
getting
McCarthy, they
what
were
you
going
need
back
starts
and
with our
forth.
app.
I mean, they've
Need it
made some
today?
mistakes
Pick it up
further down the line, but
curbside.
TCU
Need it to
just
you?
so
We
happened
deliver.
to just be
Your trunk, our
the better
trunks.
team that
However
day.
you get it, we've got you.
Negate
It's
all
made
the
for doing.
penalties and all
Download
the
the
extra
Home
stuff
Depot
that
app.
came along with it. But I thought it was a really great game. I think
Let's bring in
TCU definitely
Smith,
deserved to be
Georgia's
in the
safety.
top four.
Let's start with this. Like,
Hey man,
I
it is what
mean,
it
can we
is.
go?
TCU's
Can
in
I
the
got, I
national
got this. I
championship.
got this. Now, can we
Right?
talk about
So
safety here? Can we
now
talk
let's
about
get
you coming
into
downhill and
quickly.
filling the alley like a true freaking
I don't
safety's
know
supposed
why
to
it
do,
didn't pop
not
up.
targeting, kissing him in the face?
But the Georgia and Ohio State game, right? So I was watching this one very, very, very closely. I mean, because I'm an Ohio State fan, so I really do be rocking with Ohio State. One thing I do got to point out, CJ Stroud, man, he played freaking phenomenal. I think he had like over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, damn near perfect passer rating. I think the only other player to do that against Georgia very recently was Joe Burrow in a bowl game. I may say, right? So CJ Stroud had for the most part had a phenomenal year. I think really the only loss you can hold him accountable is that Ohio State game. I mean, but it's a hit or miss, man. Like it's a team like Michigan, they're a really good program. They have one of the best defenses in the country. I mean, you're gonna have one of those nights, right? Unfortunately, with college football, you kind of almost got to nitpick every little thing, especially when you're talking about honors like Heisman Trophy winners, national championships, right? So just a quick little shot on Ohio State because they did make it interesting. I'm thinking for the most part, most people weren't even considering Georgia to even be that close with Ohio State, or if I can say it another way, Ohio State to even have a chance to really beat Georgia, even though we know that going into that game, it was definitely going to be interesting. But I think most people assumed that it wasn't going to be that close, or they didn't know that Ohio State was going to be coming out crazy as much as they did, right? So Ohio State was up on Georgia for a better part of the game. Now later in the second half, Georgia started to get things going, and just so happened, man, Georgia just came through. They just look like the team that they have been throughout the entire year. But things like this, this was definitely a good warm up, especially against a team like TCU, because OSU. I mean, I'm probably assuming that they didn't want to go against Ohio State in the playoffs, right? And then but they did. It was a good test. It was a good matchup for them. Now I feel like they've become probably even more prepared against a team like TCU, because I mean, CJ Stroud had such a phenomenal night. Even though it was in a losing effort, right? So it really just comes down to that. So now Georgia, they beat Ohio State. TCU beat Michigan. I wish we would have seen Ohio State versus Michigan national championship game. That would have been crazy to see a rematch in the championship. But like you said, coming back to it, we got Georgia Ohio State, January 9th, 7:30 Pacific time, right? So now let's get into a couple things about the game in particular. So I believe these two teams faced each other four times throughout their in recent years. So I think I have the notes right here, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the fifth. So this is the fifth matchup that they have against each other. Georgia is 4-0, and then the last matchup that Georgia had faced against TCU was on December 30th, 2016, right? So that was quite some time ago, and that was actually Kirby Smart's first bowl game as a head coach for Georgia, right? We already said, we brought up TCU beating Michigan, UG, and now they're coming in. So Georgia is coming in as a 13.5 favorite against TCU. So a lot of betting odds, people are saying, hey, they're 13-point favorite against TCU. Considering how TCU has played throughout the year, the way they just find ways to just get back in the ball game. They never really give up on the game entirely. I wouldn't give it 13 points. I would certainly not keep it 13 points, right? I'll definitely keep it under that. But that's just my personal opinion, right? And also, the Bulldogs beat Alabama last year. TCU, Kansas State. So TCU has two national championships, one in 1935 and 1938. And best team. All right, so another point that I'd like to bring up, right? So University of Georgia, with that game against Ohio State, I think that was honestly a good analysis for TCU, right? So I kind of wrote this down. Um, with Ohio State being with the way that they played, sorry, with the way that they played, right? I find it encouraging for TCU, especially with them being the number one team, one of the best defenses, being known for defense, right? Their defense is their specialty. I think that probably gave TCU a lot of encouragement looking down in the future, because it shows that they can be vulnerable. Typically in these high stake college games, I noticed that even the best defenses, right? They don't really tend to become the best. You don't see the best defenses when they're usually the best defense. If you guys understand what I'm saying, I'm not going off the dome here, man. I'm just talking, right? Let me also drop the link in the comment section though too, so if anybody wants to join. But yeah, so I think that game against OSU in Georgia definitely gave TCU a lot of confidence. I mean, we've read I just read off the point favorite how they're 13-point underdogs. So that in itself, they're playing with house money. TCU is literally playing with house money right now. They have nothing to really go for. Nobody even thought they would be in this position in the first place. So there's a that in itself is a lot to take away from, right? So for uh, what would this mean for Georgia? I mean, this is I already stated that the first bowl game that he had played was against TCU, and that was in 2016, right? But there's a multitude of things and what it means to Georgia, right? So for Georgia, there's Stetson Bennett. They'll also have an undefeated. This would also be Kirby Smart's first undefeated record, right, as a national champion. So they could have done it last year. Clearly, they didn't do it last year, but now they have the best opportunity to do so. And then, with Stetson Bennett, this is also an opportunity. I believe this is his last year to lay it all out there on the field. Usually this is where people shine the brightest. This is an opportunity, for you to make your mark. All that stuff in the past, well, with Khalid Williams, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, all these other players. I mean, you're playing against the best. You're playing against a team that played the best throughout the whole year for the majority of the year, right? So this is what it means for people like Stetson Bennett, Kirby Smart. There's a lot at stake here, and obviously, it's their asses on the line, right? So we have the undefeated season. We know obviously with Stetson Bennett goes into your draft stock. How is this going to look for him down the road? But it's one game, right? We just gotta simplify it. At the end of the day, is that it's just simply one game, and you're just gonna see two teams really battle it out for all the cards, for all the house money, right? So at the end of the day, like I said before, this would be if Kirby Smart were to win this game, he would be the third active coach to have multiple championships within a program. Right, so there's a lot to take away from this. Right, there's definitely a lot to take away from this. But let me get into a couple other things. So I already did my analysis. I already kind of spoke about the game for here and there. I know I was kind of all over the place, but I just write notes and I just try to go about this as orthodox as possible, man. I don't really be having time to write, so all I do is just all I do is just write my notes and just try to keep it as authentic as possible. So let's get into some betting odds. Let's get into some betting odds, man. I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's going on with this. All right, so let me see. Where is it? What the hell? Okay, right here. All right. All right, so just to finish it off, I got to give you guys some money lines, some bets. Got to put that out there for you guys so you guys can tap into that later, right? So the two teams entering the national championship game, Georgia and TCU, are opposites when it comes to history and experience at this stage. The defending national champion Bulldogs are two-score favorites against the underdog Horned Frogs in the championship game of the college football playoffs. Georgia is making a third game appearance in the last 6 years after winning the title last year. Meanwhile, TCU is in the middle of its college football playoff berth and is the first Big 12 team to make it to the college football playoffs national title game. All right, so let me just skim through all this. I mean, you guys already know. So what's the spread? What's the spread? Give it to me. Give it to me. What's the spread, man? All right, so we got it right here. So the spread we already said plus 13 and a half points, minus 13 and a half points. To win the money line, they got TCU at plus 375 and UG at minus 500 with a total with an over under of 62 and a half points, right? 60% of the athletic staff had said that Georgia is the team to win, right? So, I mean, I want to hear what you guys got to say. If you do, let me know in the comment section. Let me know who you guys having as the favorite to win this game, or who you guys are going to be picking to win this game. For me, I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with Georgia. Right, I'm gonna go with the underdogs in this one, right? Because I love that money line. I love that spread. So I'm going with the underdogs. But let me know in the comment section, who you guys think is gonna win this game. Um, against Georgia and TCU, right? So let me know, because I'm excited to hear. I want to see it, and that is it, man. So this concludes an episode of Cash Sports. It was just a nice little quick take on the college football championship game, but greatly appreciate you guys coming out here, watching another episode of Cash Sports. Please like and subscribe, hit that bell and notification button, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace.